Hey, I'm J.R. Lay, and welcome back to the Level Up Business Podcast. What if thought leadership isn't something you do, but it is an outcome that you earn? Today, I'm joined by Mike Grinberg, co-founder of Proofpoint Marketing, who's been helping consultants, he's been helping entrepreneurs cut through the noise by turning their lived experiences into credibility that actually drives growth. In today's conversation, Mike and I are going to unpack why the commoditization of expertise in the age of AI is really shifting the way we think about not just expertise, but also wisdom, why intuition, another form of wisdom and lived experiences, are more valuable than ever before, and how real connection through community and conversation is the true differentiator in business today. You're also going to learn why credibility is the ultimate currency, why packaging your wisdom matters more than the medium you use to share that wisdom, and how shifting from knowing to feeling unlocks real transformation as an entrepreneur. So whether you are a consultant, an advisor, or an entrepreneur who's trying to stand out in a crowded marketplace, this conversation will challenge the way you think about expertise to give you a roadmap to build trust at scale by sharing your unique wisdom. But before we unlock Mike's unique wisdom, are you a visionary entrepreneur who wants to turn video content like this, like the video that you're watching, into a published book so that you can elevate your brand's influence and increase your revenue? Send me a text, 832-240-1922, because I want to teach you how you can transform your past experience as an entrepreneur into IP that monetizes your unique wisdom. Now, let's get ready to learn. Let's get ready to grow. Let's get ready to level up together with Mike Grinberg. Your point on, and there are a couple of previous posts, recent posts about thought leadership. I even think one that you shared today, you said thinking out loud information can be a competitive advantage. But it's like this whole, something that I've been thinking about, information, access to information, the commoditization of quote unquote expertise.
Yep.
Where is this going to go as we keep moving forward into this age of AI? Because you're working in a knowledge economy as well.
That's a good question. I mean, my gut reaction to that is like, I don't think anybody has any freaking clue where it's going to go. You know, I really like, there are a lot of people that are prognosticating all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And I think the comment around the commoditization of expertise is, and I say something similar. Like I was just on a call with a client a couple of days ago, and we were talking about like consulting is becoming more commoditized. I think there's some truth to that for sure. But at the end of the day, I think the expertise as a practice isn't going anywhere. And actually, like, again, this is where I was thinking out loud in my post, because I think as more and more information becomes democratized, if you will, I think more, I have this feeling, and this is my assumption. I have nothing concrete to prove it. I haven't done the research or anything like that, but there is this thought that do more people just keep things private like they used to? You know, because like you always would hear like, oh, they're closed door meetings and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And like we all read the articles on all the, you know, the various business publications about how all the tech billionaires have their own, you know, Telegram thread and private that nobody has access to. And that's where deals get made and, you know, stuff like that.
Well, that's where it's like, I don't have the quantitative data yet, but it's just reading between the tea leaves and having done this now for 23 years, 24, that's almost a quarter of a century. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so there's some perspective here, and I could be completely wrong, but there's also some intuition that do we trust our intuition? Have we failed to trust our intuition? Like, is that a level of knowledge? Is that intuition a level of expertise that perhaps maybe that's what we need to lean more into when things are knowledge, expertise is getting
Yeah.
commoditized. What do you think on that with
I mean,
gut?
there's I'm trying to remember the name of the guy, but I listened to an interview. He was I think he was like a former either FBI or CIA like hostage negotiator. I'm not talking about Chris Voss. There's somebody else. That in his whole thing, this was something around like like self-defense and how women have better intuition than men, this kind of stuff, but they don't listen to it. That was the general premise. And
Shout out to my wife on that because yes, she's her intuition is off the charts. And
right,
it's
right,
19 years of marriage to finally start listening to her
yep,
a little bit, and it's
yep.
going to grow exponentially. I
I
know.
am, I am, I am with you. So the point, the reason I bring that up is like I think intuition in that sense is it's pattern. It's like it's pattern matching, right? And it's pattern matching like at the whatever prefrontal cortex. It's sort of like automatic, right? And it's the idea that that guy was talking about is like, it's like, hey, if the elevator door opens and the guy and it's later on at night and the guy that's standing there doesn't like you got the heebie-jeebies, just turn around, right? It's that kind of thing. But the way I think that translates to what you're talking about is, I think there is value to lived experience, and as we live the experience and we do this same or similar thing over and over and over again in various different contexts. Like I'm talking about myself as a consultant, and you're in a similar boat, right? You do start getting this pattern recognition, if you will. It's different than I think than the pattern recognition that AI can do, right? This is not big data. This is not structured or unstructured data. This is like pattern recognition turned to feeling that you translate. And I do think there's a lot of value in it. And I think as long as we're dealing with people,
Yeah.
we have to deal with the flip side of that coin, which is their feelings, right? So if you think about like more value gets placed on than like things like account management and in our practice, right?
Mhm.
Things like that, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people's feelings.
Yes.
And you can't argue feelings. And no matter what the AI can do, like, and sure, like you're getting all these use cases where, people are using AI for therapy and stuff, which questionable from what I can tell, but whatever. So I don't know. Like, again, I think this is all my intuition kind of as we're talking. At the end of the day, I don't know that anybody really knows how this is all going to play out, because there's all sorts of second, third, fourth string effects that we don't really know.
Well, there's a couple of points I want to loop back to your thought on like the Telegram, the WhatsApp, things happening in private, behind the scenes, behind closed doors. It's that element of community.
Yeah.
And I was just recently on site with a legacy client, as I'm continuing to invest more into level up business. And I have my other business as well, but it's like, I'm operating from a future self now. And so never have I, at 23 years as an entrepreneur, had this much intention from operating from a future state. And that's a whole nother topic for another day. But I was working on site with this legacy client, and we were talking about like the need, like people need more probably than ever before because of the 2020 experience, connection, real connection, conversation. And so as a thought experiment, the VP of marketing went and put a LinkedIn post out saying, hey, I was thinking about this over the weekend. I just want to just open up my calendar, connections, conversations. And he texts me and he said, listen, he goes, you have created a monster. I go, no, this is, I think what people are really longing for is
Yep.
connection, is conversation, is community. Why is that? What's changed perhaps just in the last, especially in a B2B world, within the last 3 to 5 years? Because that's where I think I've seen the shift the most.
Yeah, number one, I completely agree with you, and I'm similarly, I'm making a bet on that. I think just like you are, where I just became a partner in a local business community mastermind group and kind of helping build that out. So I 100% agree with your statement on that people are craving it. I think that I think that's just human. Like humans are communal creatures. Like you don't have to look too far back, and you can go as far back as you want. At the end of the day, like that's how humans survive.
Yes.
So it's a survival instinct. I don't know if I'm going to say anything new. I think I think COVID proved to everybody that it sucks being isolated, and I mean, you're seeing all sorts of impacts on like the young kids that, couldn't go to school for a year, all that kind of stuff. So,
Hmm.
developmental issues, et cetera, et cetera. So I think like kids, adults, like we all crave human connection. Like I think even I'd venture to say that even like the introverts out there still crave that small, intimate gathering of friends or whatever, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I don't think anything has changed from a human perspective. I think it's more of the between social media and the internet and all of the stuff. I think people were already starting to feel isolated,
Hmm.
and you hear all this stuff about the loneliness epidemic, et cetera, right now. And I just think COVID accelerated it, like it accelerated many other things. So I don't know that there's any change in terms of who we are as humans. I think it's just what happened in society or what was happening.
It's like a rubber band effect, perhaps. It's equilibrium. It's like we went so far one way. It's like we're gonna go back the other way, probably
I
over
mean, the
index.
pendulum is always swinging, and
Yeah.
and oftentimes it swings too far in one direction and then levels out and then swings too far in the other direction, and we're always correcting, right?
That's a great book, by the way. If you're watching or listening, I don't know. It's called Pendulum, and it looks at how the world works essentially on these 80-year cycles. The fourth turning is another, I would say, relevant work as well. And you think about these transformations. You also recently wrote on LinkedIn that if you are consultant expert, and you think a lot of the B2B entrepreneurs who listen to this they're in a business vertical where their experience, their trust, their relationships are important. Financial advisors, SaaS, other marketing consultants, agencies. You say stop using Gen AI to create content and go back to what we were talking about here is having some of the conversations. Once again, think about the pendulum. Why conversations now to co-create? This is what I'm doing. I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years at this point, but I want to get your take on this. What are you seeing this shift happening to come back to conversation?
I think that there's a couple of things. I think it's the as far as having conversations, I think a couple of things. One is a conversation is a way to work through your thoughts. And I think there's not a lot of conversation that I hear about the value of writing and speaking and having conversations on developing your IP.
What do you mean?
So
Tell me more
what I mean
about
by that is like you can sit with yourself and do stuff on your own only for so long. Like you need feedback, and
Well,
I
I've
think
heard
there's
that sitting with yourself, and I'm not trying to be funny or crude about this, but someone else told me like you sit with yourself so long and with your ideas, it just becomes mental masturbation. Like you're just getting off with yourself, and you're not.
and again, there's a happy medium. Right? I think you need to a certain extent, and I think having a process for self-reflection, like writing, is a
Mhm.
really great thing. But then at some point you got to put it out there, get some feedback, and I think that's where conversations come in. Right? There's been so many times where I've been interviewed and somebody either uses an analogy and like, oh my God, I didn't think about it that way. That's awesome. I'm going to use that now, right? Or I'm going
Mm.
to adapt it. Or the question is asked in a way where I say something a little bit differently, like that makes a lot more sense than it did before. Things like that. Now the interesting thing is you can technically use AI to help accelerate that, right? Like you can only get on so many podcasts in any given day, right? You can talk to ChatGPT as much as you want. You can have it interview you. And like that's where, so there's the flip side to that coin in terms of, yes, have conversations. And it's not that you shouldn't use AI to accelerate your content creation. I think you can and you should.
Mm-hmm.
I personally wouldn't use it to create my kind of core content. Like,
Yeah.
would I have it write my post, like a LinkedIn post for me that's based on a video that I recorded? Yes. And I'd edit that. That's fine. But I wouldn't have it write one of my newsletters, as an example.
Well, this is getting to, we'll call it the classical education perspective, where if you think about the three R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, there's another R that in classical education, in
Reasoning.
reasoning, rhetoric, um, tie the two together. And rhetoric, if you think about it, it's communication, it's influence, it's persuasion. And even the people from the marketing world, when I bring up the word rhetoric, they're like, I've heard of it. I don't really know what it means. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that, because then you
Yep.
get into the logos, the ethos, the pathos, and what are we appealing to right here? Which gets back to your point before about feeling and emotion when it comes to this idea of connection and communication. And in Banking on Change, my second book, I had to figure out what makes people change. Why do people change? Whether you're in marketing and you're in sales, you're in leadership, you're in an advisory like business, change is what you're doing. You're influencing or inspiring some sort of change or transformation. And I started asking people, and I started once again pattern recognition. There are four phases. Step one is to help others see things different, gain a new perspective. And once you see something from a different perspective, it's kind of hard to unsee that. So your thought patterns begin to change. So you see different, and then you think different. And so when I asked the question, well, what's the third step? 98 to 99% of responses are, well, I'm going to act, or I'm going to be, or I'm going to do different. And I'm like, wait a minute, are you really? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I go, think about everything that you know you need to do intellectually, philosophically, but you're not taking action. And they're like, huh. I was like, I hypothesized, I proposed that there's a step that goes between the thought and the action. You got to feel different. So you have to have some sort of an emotional shift. You're shaking your head on this. Why don't you weigh in?
No, I completely agree. I haven't, again, this is where I like conversation. Like, I haven't put that into those words, but there's a reason why everybody makes New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
And I forget, I don't know the date on it, but it's like 90% of them that never come to fruition, right? Like, why is that? Yeah. We know how to set goals. We generally know what we need to do, right? It's like, if you think about health and fitness, virtually nothing new is written on most of that stuff anymore. It's like, optimize your sleep, eat greens and get a decent amount of protein and whatever, exercise every day. And like, sure, there's levels to each of those things, fine. But in general, the average person is not lacking in knowledge in how to be a fairly fit and healthy human being. Why do we have an obesity epidemic? Why do we, like, it's for that exact reason. Like, there's a feeling component, and there's actually interesting. I think there's a what's the word for it? Like a actual chemical component as well. Like, the feeling isn't just this warm and fuzzy thing. There's actually something concrete happening in the brain, and there's all sorts of ways to kind of hack that, etc. Right? But I agree with the general sentiment. Yes.
Well, no, you bring up a great point about the emotional chemical side of things. I think what holds a lot of people back from doing something, even though they know they need to do it, it's the fear, it's the anxiety, it's the uncertainty. And I think the world that we're living in right now, we're at a very high level of uncertainty, which is creating this, paralyzation. Let's come back to where we started this conversation on, we'll just use the word thought leadership. Thought leadership is what changed my life as an entrepreneur, becoming a published author, best-selling author, not once, not twice, podcasts, becoming the Sage on Stage. You also have this philosophy, and you wrote an article, Beyond Handshakes, How Ideas Drive Your Business Development at Scale, where, I guess, let's frame it this way. What's a common misconception that you see other entrepreneurs have when it comes to thought leadership?
I mean, the main one I think is they think of it as an activity or a set of actions that you take. And if you take those actions, you become a thought leader. And, excuse me, and while there is some truth to that, like you do have to take some actions, otherwise nothing happens, right? That's pretty straightforward. But I think until you flip the script and you realize that thought leadership or becoming a thought leader is actually an outcome rather than just an activity, you're not going to do the right things, right? Like thought leadership is you don't do, it's not like, hey, I wrote 2 books and wrote in 1,000 articles. I am now a thought leader. Does anybody else think so? Has anybody read your books? Have they recommended your books? Have you been invited to speak on stage because of your books? Have you won business because of the stuff that you've written or put out there? If the answer is no, 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 and no, you're not a thought leader. I'm sorry. You've just done a bunch of stuff and maybe you've learned a lot of, I'm not like devaluing it in the sense of like, I'm sure you've learned a lot of things from it. Great. Congratulations. You're just not a thought leader. And that's not how it works, right? You have to be elevated to the position of thought leader. So I think that's the result. Yes, it's an outcome, 100%.
It's an outcome. We think about mental models and frameworks. It's how my brain works, and I've been thinking about the Tao, DAO, Eastern philosophy, the way essentially, and I put an acronym to it. A decision leads to an action leads to an outcome. That becomes the way.
Yeah.
When the outcome of what if thought leadership is the outcome, you mentioned the actions before, but what's the decision that one has to make before they can even take the action, which probably comes back to what we were talking about, a feeling and an emotion to maintain that decision throughout when things get tough.
I mean, I think there's a few things. One's probably more external and the other one's more internal. The external thing is like, I'm going to commit to creating something that's valuable for people. It's not just about, I'm writing a book. Okay. Is it the right, which by the way, I might want to talk to you because I'm in the process of starting to write my first one. So any advice is appreciated, but like, is it the right book? Why are people going to read it? Is it going to be valuable enough where if they spend whatever, $20 on it, they're going to feel like they got at least $40 worth of value, whatever, like.
Well, let's pause real fast, and maybe if you're open, we can do this in just real time and work through some of this. One of the conversations I have with other entrepreneurs, I want to write a book, and then I'm like, I'll play one of my 4 kids, and my oldest is 15, and my youngest is 9. Why? So okay, so Mike, why invest? And yes, there's a dollar, but I think deeper. Why invest the time, the energy, and the attention to do this?
So for me, it's everything I've done so far is generally catered to a level of clientele that is, fairly large. We're talking 20, $30 million consulting firms, etc. And I like the work, don't get me wrong, but I have a soft spot for the startup consulting founder, the solo or the micro firm. They generally can't afford what I do right now. So for a long time, and I've always gotten a decent amount of requests. I just haven't figured out like how best to help them. And this is one idea of, amongst others, and part of some of the stuff I'm gonna be rolling out in my business. But one reason why is like I want to be able to help those people, and if I can package up my frameworks that I know work and that people have responded positive to, all this kind of stuff, then great. Like that's my why. It's really got nothing to do with the dollar per se. Like, do I think it's going to help my business and drive more my way? Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily do it otherwise, but that's not the why behind it.
I will say just from personal experience and having done it twice and now working on my third, starting from that place of I want to help others, and the outcome of that, it's probably going to lead to more business and more revenue, but I want to start from helping first and selling second. Uh, to me, that's a great place. And a lot of that came from advice that I got
Mhm.
from an advisor I had hired back in 2012, David C. Baker, who wrote the book The Business of Expertise, and he was just starting to share some of that framework back then. And he said, "JR, you're going to write a book." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You're crazy!" Like, and then in 2015, I attended, his seminar, Write the Damn Book, and it took me another 4 years to actually make
Yeah.
the commitment. But once I made the commitment, I was like, I get it and I understand it. Now, you're packaging up that. I think that's another key. It's like, and this is what's driving us. It's to help other entrepreneurs turn video content into a book that where they can monetize their unique
Mhm.
wisdom. And unique wisdom equals their unique perspective, so their lived, learned, shared experience, which is then multiplied by their unique methods, the models, frameworks, systems that visualize that. So you mentioned that you've been collecting all of this, so it's life's work is probably how much expertise. And I don't like the word use the word expertise because I think that's the danger of commoditization, because wisdom is the application of that. How much wisdom, how many years of wisdom have you been building this set of IP and insight?
Yeah.
Just for
I
context.
mean, concerted effort, I would say we're 5 years ish, but it's obviously everything from before to and that influenced it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm starting to observe as a pattern. It's like if you've been doing what you've been doing consistently as an entrepreneur for 5 to 10 years, and the 10 years is typically when you're like, I've got enough to where I can go help others. Then it comes back to, okay, great. You see that, or you might not see that. It might
Mhm.
be other people telling you, hey, have you ever thought about putting this in a book or helping other people?
Yep.
Start listening to that, start paying attention to that, number one. But number two, what's holding you back? What are the lies? What are the self-limiting beliefs? What's the imposter? Have you dealt with any of that yourself? I did, and I still
I
do.
don't think there's a single expert or consultant or whatever, anybody who's looking at writing a book or whatever. That's really kind of the business of expertise, for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anybody like that that hasn't felt that. I'd be amazed if that's true. I mean, look, athletes feel it. Like I think everybody feels it. Like you have a bad day, a bad meeting, a bad client experience, a bad you know game. If you're an athlete, whatever it is, like thoughts just creep in. Like, am I really good enough?
Mm.
Am I smart enough? Does this really work? I think that's normal. It's more of I got the Rocky poster behind me, like no one's gonna hit as hard as life kind of thing. It's not the quote that I'm thinking of, but it's not about like, yeah, you're gonna think that, but it's how are you gonna address that and move past it.
Yeah. Well, another point you make is credibility is currency. And I think about this. I was being interviewed on a podcast. It's interesting how you're being a mirror back to me because it was with Keith Costello, who's the CEO at Locality Bank. I flew down to Miami and was on his podcast back this past November. And I just made this offhand comment about the wisdom economy. He's like, that's the title of your next book. And I was like, so I've been playing around with this idea of the wisdom economy, and you talk about credibility as currency. What do you mean by credibility as currency?
I mean, I think that's at the end. Like when I talk about it, it's for specifically targeted at other consultants and consulting firms and things like that. So it's the approach I take is that hiring an unknown consultant or boutique firm, whatever, is a risky bet for the person that's making the hiring decision, right? Especially if you're selling to enterprise, and even if not, it doesn't really matter, right? You're an unknown. You're an unknown commodity. So the thing that breaks through that is credibility. If you have credibility, if people prior to making the pitch, if you will, that increases the likelihood of that going through. Because without it, it's that whole quote of, nobody gets hired for firing, or nobody gets fired for hiring IBM, right? It's why does that exist? Well, because everybody knows IBM is, and it's like, well, you hired the best, quote unquote, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. But if you hire an unknown and that fails, your boss is going to go, hey, well, told you not to make that decision.
It's also, I would say, you're talking about this from a consulting standpoint, but I would say it's also true in the financial advisor space, the wealth management space.
True of any knowledge-based. It's not, again, the framework applies to really any professional service, realistically.
I was listening to...
It really even applies to plumbing and plumbers and electricians and roofers and whatever, if you really think about it. It's like,
yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone was talking about hiring a wealth manager, and they were in a mastermind with another fiduciary. That fiduciary had just given them a book. That one book changed their entire buying decision because they sat down one weekend, read the whole thing, highlighted it, talked to their spouse about it, and they ended up working with the other one who had the book and not the one who didn't have the book. And I was like, that gets back to the point of rhetoric and influence and persuasion. So, Mike,
the one thing to note there is that it's not the book.
No,
it's not that they had the book. It could have been an article. It could have been a video. The medium doesn't exactly matter. It's that there was expertise packaged up in a way that made them think differently about their financial problems or opportunities or whatever. And they go, never thought about it that way. Or, yes, I've been thinking, but finally someone put it into words that I couldn't. I want to work with that person.
Let me add to that thought as we wrap up. The book, the article, the thought leadership piece, if you will, and you're right, the medium doesn't matter. And I think about Marshall McLuhan as the medium is the message, but that thought leadership piece helped them to see something different, which helped them to think about something different. But most importantly,
made them
feel different about the decision that they made, because they were able to move from confusion to clarity, clarity to courage, courage to commitment, commitment to confidence to make the decision to then move forward. So, Mike, you've got great writing. You are sharing a tremendous amount of value on LinkedIn. If someone wants to continue the conversation we've started, they want to connect with you, have a conversation, what's the best way for them to reach out and say hello to you?
LinkedIn's the best. Otherwise, for anybody who wants to subscribe to the newsletter, they can do that on the website.
And what's that website for them?
Proofpoint.marketing.
Proofpoint.marketing. Connect with Mike on LinkedIn. Learn with Mike. Grow with Mike. Mike, thanks so much, buddy.
Appreciate you, James.
Thanks again for tuning in to learn, to grow, to level up together with Mike's unique wisdom. Are you a visionary entrepreneur who wants to turn video content like the one you're watching right now into a published book so that you can elevate your brand and increase your influence? Send me a text right now, 832-240-1922, because I want to teach you. I want to show you how you can transform your past experience as an entrepreneur into IP that monetizes your unique wisdom.